Hi, everyone, and welcome back. While skill migration offers great PR opportunities, they are not the only ones. Employer-sponsored visas also offer these opportunities for skilled workers, such as the 186 visa and the 482 visa. And today, I'm joined here with our registered migration agent to talk more about these two key visas, talk about them individually, what their differences are, and many more. So, with the first question, can you talk a bit more about the 482 and 186 visas and how they're designed so that the audience has a clearer understanding?
Hi, everybody. In terms of how the 482 visa, which is the skills in demand visa, and the 186 visa, that's the employer nomination scheme, both employer sponsored visas, the way these are structured, it's a bit different. 482 visa is more flexible in the sense that somebody who has a qualification, who has like a 1 year work experience, can be sponsored under the 482 visa. Now, even skills assessment is not mandatory. So it a person from Bhutan can be sponsored for this 482 visa, whether he or she is onshore or offshore. And Bhutan falls under that exemption list. So a skills assessment is not necessary. But even if you do the skills assessment, it value adds, but you don't have to do it. Now, in terms of the 186 visa, that is more of a structured visa in the sense that there's more due diligence to be met. You have to have like 3 years of work experience in addition to your qualification. You need to do the mandatory skills assessment. And unlike 482, which is the temporary visa, 186 is a permanent visa. So the difference is in terms of easy to access 482. And not many of us are eligible for 186 directly. Some of us are, some are not. But you could find one or two persons who are like eligible for 482 as well as 186. So given the trend, a lot of opportunist colleagues are tapping onto the 482 visa, which is more easy to access.
Okay. So now, between those two visas, what is the key difference between the employer requirements for a 482 visa and 186 visa?
So in terms of the employer requirements, I still see a bit of a gap in the market. Some businesses are not aware that to sponsor a worker under the 482 and the 186 visa, the arrangements are a bit different. The most striking thing being that for 482 visa, you need to be sponsored as a standard business sponsor. And some businesses feel that even for sponsoring someone under the 186, they need to be a standard business sponsor. And some of them are even applying for becoming a standard business sponsor for sponsoring somebody for 186, which is not correct. So that is one key difference that businesses are not aware of. Some are aware, most of them are not.
Okay. How do an employer's obligations differ from sponsoring someone under a 482 visa compared to the 186 visa?
So 482 visa, because it is a temporary visa, the visa conditions are a bit different in terms of what the sponsor has to abide by. Now, in terms of what it is, now they sponsor you for a 482 visa, that person has to work for you. That person cannot work for other businesses, and it has to be a full-time job. And other requirements are that the position has to be genuine, the position has to be full-time and ongoing for the period of the visa. And now in terms of 186, the obligation is there, but if you really go by the book, it's a permanent visa. So when somebody is being sponsored for the 186 visa, there is a subtle requirement that the position has to be genuine. Okay, the position has to be ongoing for 2 years. But what we notice is that once the visa has been granted, unlike the 482, which requires the person to keep working for the business, they can't just do what they want. For 186, if by Some means that person gets like another employment opportunity or doesn't want to work with that employer because something happened. He or she can leave because there's no binding thing that binds him to that requirement to be with that employer. So that's the biggest difference. With 186, there's more flexibility, but 482, it's more rigid.
So, does working for the same employer on a 482 visa automatically lead to permanent residency, or are there additional requirements?
So see now, 482 is a temporary visa, but there is the opportunity to transition into the 186 visa later on once you have worked with that employer for 2 years. So there is a pathway, but many people think that once they're on their 482, they will move into that transition pathway. It doesn't work like that because there could be many reasons. Maybe the employer doesn't want to sponsor you for that 186 visa. Maybe the employer goes bankrupt after, say, 1 year you're working with them. Maybe the employer has other priorities that they do not want to sponsor you. So many things can develop. But in a business as usual scenario, if the employer wants to take you forward on that 186 visa, it is possible because you don't have to meet a lot of requirements once you come in that transitional pathway thing. But it is not as straight as many people think.
Okay. So now, what happens if a person wants to change their employers while holding a 482 visa?
So yes, now see, for example, now we can tag this to the same question before. Now, for example, you're working with an employer, you have been sponsored for a 482 visa. Say after 1 year, the company has some financial problems, the company is no longer able to sponsor you, they have reduced staff, and you're one of them. So then you still have a 482 visa, and now you need to change your employer. See, this is one situation. There could be other situations where you're getting better job opportunities and you want to move to a new employer. So, irrespective of the situation, you can look for a new employer, but you were nominated by the person, the employer. So, you need to submit a new nomination because you still hold the 482 visa, but you can't continue to work for the new employer, or you cannot even start working for the new employer before that new nomination gets approved by the department. So, technically speaking, yes, you can change employer depending on the circumstances, and the department will give you like 180 days, 6 months to get that done. Because at times, I mean, if you have a new employer who wants to take you on board immediately, it works. But if that company has gone bankrupt or some other reasons for not continuing with your sponsorship, it takes time. So department is I mean, they appreciate that more time will be taken, so that's why they give you that additional time of 6 months.
Okay, just a quick question. So, is there a limit to how many different employees you can switch to, or is it as many as you want?
So see, that's a good question. In an ideal situation, you wouldn't want change a lot of employers, but in the event, like say you put in a new nomination, you work with that gets approved, you work with a new employer, suddenly that employer also has some problems, you can still go on. So there is no limit in the sense the policy doesn't prescribe any limit that you can't get this nomination for like this number of employers.
Okay. So, next one. How is this different to for someone who already holds a 186 permanent resident visa?
So yes, so it's basically the same thing. So because of the way the 186 is structured, so he or she, like I mentioned earlier, technically you need to be like working at least like for 2 years. That's not a binding requirement. I'm sure people who are watching who have launched 186 visas will agree with me that when you prepare the 186 application, there is a very specific statement that comes mentioning that does the employer commit to employ that person who is being nominated for 186 visa for at least 2 years. So that sort of commitment is there during the visa application process, and it also very clearly mentions that if If you don't commit to that, visa can be cancelled later. Say the department finds out that, say, Jimmy is being sponsored by somebody on a 186 for civil engineering because he's doing civil engineering. And once Jimmy gets a 186, next day Jimmy just disappears. He's not working with that employer. Jimmy just goes somewhere, does work in a non-related occupation or something. Then the department has the authority to cancel, but department wouldn't be aware that Jimmy has gone away, is not working. So I mean, I think that's one of the loopholes of the 186 visa, that you can get sponsored for a 186 visa, but once granted, it's very open-ended. Lah.
Now, what are the most common mistakes employers make when sponsoring workers under the 482 and 186 visa?
So just taking both into consideration, like one mistake that I noticed in the 482 and 186 visa is that the standard business sponsor, which we touched upon earlier. Now, even for 186, the ENS visa, you don't need to be a standard business sponsor to sponsor somebody. And businesses have gone down that pathway, which is not correct, but businesses didn't know about that. So that is one common mistake that is being done. The other mistake in a 482 visa is obviously the labor market testing. Now, I have explained in my previous videos that labor market testing is an integral part of the 482 visa process, and it is not a very light exercise to be considered. But businesses think that it's just like a formality. Oh, I want to sponsor person A. I will just do the labor market testing because the department requires it. And then tomorrow, 500 applicants apply for that position. And then they are like, what happened? This is not what I was expecting. I thought this was just like a small exercise. But now you tell me that you have to really do the assessment and come out with all those things, and they get scared. So basically, I think that message hasn't gone out very clear to them that it is an integral part, it is a requirement of the department that the best feasible potential candidate is selected. And other mistakes are like in terms of the income thresholds. Now, for both 482 and 186, 482 obviously has that core skills income threshold and the specialist screen income threshold. Now, some businesses are like, well, I am paying as per the award. Now, different occupations have different award systems in place where they have like based on the occupations. Now they go by the award and say, well, my award says that occupation is paid say 90,000 dollars, just for example purpose. But if the threshold is like 79,000 for the core skills income threshold, that is fine because the 80-90 is above the threshold. Now if the award says no, that award for that occupation is paying 60 to 65,000, why should I pay the 79,000 threshold? I'm not going to pay them more than what the award says. That is not acceptable for the 482, mainly because of the reason that it is an eligibility requirement that if somebody is paid below that threshold, the department not accept it. So there are certain mistakes where the business is like, I want to pay them what the award pays. I'm not concerned with the LMT. I think it will be okay. The department will approve it. So few very common mistakes that the businesses do it, but sometimes they want to do it even though they know that this might hamper their application.
Okay, so now, what is your final message to the people out there who may be in these positions?
So see now, there are persons with occupations, with the skills, with the work experience who wants to get sponsored for 482, 186, and there are potential employers who want to sponsor them for these visas. But everybody are at different levels of maturity. Some have gone through this process, especially the businesses. Some have sponsored one after other. They're very well aware of the process, the eligibility requirements, for example, for A to labor market testing, how important that is. But there are some new businesses who are not aware of the process, who feel that it's a very straightforward approach. I don't think it's a very straightforward approach. You need to be clear. You need to be aware of the department's requirements, because if you feel that, oh, this doesn't look important, this is less important, and you might hamper the nomination, you might hamper the visa application process. And very often than not, I think what is also important to mention is that Sometimes people are like, oh, the nomination got approved, the visa application will definitely get approved. That is also not correct. There are instances where visa nominations get approved, but visa applications gets refused because of not fulfilling the requirements. So as a word of caution, I would say that if you haven't gone through this process in the past, please contact us. We have helped businesses to get their standard business sponsorship approved. We have helped with the employer nomination scheme nominations approval. We have also helped numerous visa applicants get their visas. So we are aware of the process and we can guide you in the best possible way.
Okay, so thank you for all that information. That is it for the video today, guys. Hope you guys understood more about the 186 visa and the 482 visa. And like our sir said, if you have any more questions, please make sure to get in touch with us and we're more than happy to help you. So I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.